morning, and welcome to our service in the sanctuary for Easter morning. It's wonderful to have you join us this morning. We're going to start with lighting a new Christ candle to celebrate the resurrection. The light which the world tried to extinguish cannot be put out. Today we light our Christ candle again, proclaiming the transforming power of God's love. Light, life, and love, those are at the center of all that we do and all that we are. Jesus' death and resurrection proves to us that nothing, not even death, can dim that light. So today we celebrate new life, new joy, new possibilities. Christ is alive and living among us. So with this flame, we declare that in the face of what appears to be overwhelming odds, God is at work in us and in the world, working for justice and peace, compassion and love and life abundant. Christ is risen. Christ is risen in us. For wherever we gather in his name, he is there. I read a very powerful quote this year from someone named Casey Cairns. They wrote, "Maybe, for once, we celebrate Easter differently. Maybe we celebrate the resurrection just as the disciples did, alone in the silence, hoping the faith outweighs the fear." I have to be honest with you, even after more than 2.5 decades of celebrating Easter morning in the church, the images that come to my mind when you say Easter have nothing to do with religion. I feel badly about that, but it's true. My parents had an LP record of Easter songs that they played every single Easter morning when I was young. And there's only 2 songs I remember from that LP. The first is "Oh, What a Beautiful Morning," which is actually from the stage show Oklahoma. It has nothing to do with Easter, but you may have heard, "Oh, what a beautiful morning." And it goes on to say that the corn is as high as an elephant's eye. And for some reason, that image always sticks in my mind when we talk about Easter. And the second was "The Easter Parade" by Bing Crosby. That was on the record as well, which comes from a movie that he was in. And again, it's about the turn of the century, southern U.S., sunshine, flowers, Easter bonnets, horse-drawn carriages. That's the first thing I think of when you say Easter. Try as I might to make the religious images come first. It is sunny days, corn growing, which I'm pretty sure is impossible, and Easter eggs that come first in my mind. My point being that when I think of Easter, it is happy. It is all about pinks and pastels and ham dinners and chocolate bunnies and brightly colored eggs. It's those green, yellow, and purple grasses that were in the basket. For some reason, I really loved those as a kid. I have never thought about Easter being alone, in the dark, or afraid. But that quote is an interesting one because if you read or listened to our John resurrection passage from the other video, you will realize that in the Bible, that is how Easter happens. Easter happens when they go to the tomb alone, in the dark, in the morning, and afraid of what they're going to find. And perhaps that resonates a little more closely this year. Because it sure is different this year, isn't it? Easter is being celebrated simply with the people that we are quarantined with. When the church is usually alive and vibrant and full to the rafters with people, I'm here this morning preaching to an empty church. Even when the good news of resurrection seems to be just another small blip on the radar of us asking, what's going to happen next? Easter still is here, and it's still real. And those questions that we have, those feelings that we have, they're the point at some level, right? Think about the followers of Jesus back then. They expected Jesus to overthrow the Roman army. They expected Jesus to be the Messiah they had dreamt of. They expected that everything was going to change and become instantly better. That's why the death on the cross shook them to the very core of who they were. Nothing they believed was going the way they thought it should. They expected Jesus to be so wise, so full of God, that he would solve every single problem, from money lending to taking the Lord's name in vain and everything in between. And the Romans killed him. There was no rebellion, no change, no future filled with salvation, just death and fear and loneliness. That's why the story of the tomb in the early morning is so important. That's why it matters that Mary went and was changed in an instant. Why the disciples ran there and looked in and saw he was gone and everything changed. It was in that moment that it changed from, I failed completely, to, wow, this could change everything. It was in that moment that their faith became not just a hoped-for thing, but a realized expectation. And not in the way they thought it would, but in a new way. New life, new opportunity, new hope. Every single story of Easter is the story of people giving up, resorting to sadness, and then realizing that God's there anyway, that it changes everything. And the story presents that as good news. It presents it as they went from there out into the world to tell their friends, to tell the world, to change the world, to be empowered to boldly go where no man has gone before. That's what Easter brings to mind in the biblical telling of it. But we have to translate that into our own lives, into our own way of living. We have to understand what new life looks like for us right now in the midst of everything. Because God is still here and Jesus is still risen.